I realized soon after, as I closed the business, I started to visualize, well, all right, if I'm going to be Brad 2.0, what do I want in my life? What's next in this life? And what are my intentions in this life? What do I want it to look like?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break podcast. In today's episode, we want to discuss what you can do with open box returns. Now, this is a problem for a lot of Shopify merchants out there, and I have a genius solution that I want to introduce you to today. And this is done by Brett Sorok. He's an e-commerce veteran who has been in the industry since 1999, growing from solo ventures to building a 20 million business with 85 employees. Featured in traction as a visionary in niche retail, Brett now tackles global returns challenge with his Shopify app. So we want to dive into this, and I would like him to welcome to the show. Hi, Brett. How are you today?
Hi, great, Klaus. Thanks for having me.
Brett, you have been in e-commerce for a very, very long time. Tell me a little bit about your journey and how did you end up creating a Shopify app?
Yeah, it did, right. It is old. It started in 1999. And we didn't, at the time, Shopify, of course, didn't exist. And I was in retail and out in a small ski town out in Colorado. And I was out riding my bike one day and we were trying to figure out, I was doing telemarkski.com, which was great. Most people don't even know what telemark skiing is, but it was a very small niche industry. But I was riding my bike one day and I had a watch on, an altimeter watch, and I was like, what if I just did altimeter watches? And people at the time were trying to be everything to everybody.com, petsoutdoors.com or pets.com, planetoutdoors.com, all these different ones, and babymall.com. Well, I thought if I did just watches, and then I thought, what if I just did the brand of watch? And I did suntowatches.com. I went home and I called Sunto and they said, oh, we've heard of the internet. This is a great path. Luck and timing sort of maybe played into this, and they let me do it. So I started with suntowatches.com and my son was being born and I was looking at strollers and I thought, well, what if I went to babymall.com and it was horrible? And I thought, what if I just did joggingstroller.com? So I figured out how to buy that site for about $1,000, or that domain, excuse me. And so then the first year we did $175,000 in sales. And the next year I kept going with these niches. And the next year I did 2 million. And the next year we did 6 million. And the next year we did 10 million. It just kept going and going. And of course, the warehouse piece of it all was I wanted to control everything. Control everything. Well, it seemed like at the time, like if I could drop ship everything, that's the perfect world. Drop ship, they ship it. But then there was like returns coming, and where do they go? Do they go back to them? And so I went from my closet to my garage to my partner's garage to a small warehouse to a bigger warehouse to about 80,000 square feet is where we ended up. So that one grew, as you just said in the intro, we grew to about $20 million in sales by 2009 or 10. Things started to slump. Amazon, who was only selling books, was then selling everything, competing with me on price, doing free 2-day. We couldn't keep up and hold on. And I have actually have it written down, about 13 reasons why, that we had to close the business. And we closed that business, and it was a dramatic time in my life. Nobody teaches in business school how to close a $20 million business. I mean, it was really a challenging time of life. But I learned, and I thought, like, what am I even like trained to do? Am I employable? I'm just a visionary, like had a great business idea. And I realized soon after, as I closed the business, I started to visualize, well, all right, if I'm going to be Brad 2.0, what do I want in my life? What's next in this life? And what are my intentions in this life? What do I want it to look like? And I thought at the time I had all these employees and staff and big warehouse and all that stress that comes along with it and the rewards. I did love pieces of owning a company like that. But I realized when my kids were young, I said, I want to be at home. I want to be able to work from anywhere. And it sounds silly right now, 15 years later, but my motto was any beach, anywhere. I want to be able to grow a business where everything's in the cloud. Yeah, I went as far as like, so every decision I made was going to be, I can do this from anywhere. I'll have a third party warehouse, so I won't have my own employees. I will have somebody checking my mail and scanning them to PDF. But of course, since COVID, now that's sort of normal play. But at the time, it was pretty different and cutting edge and wasn't all possible. But one of the problems that we had with this whole thing was returns. We had a massive, I wouldn't say it's the same as everyone. We just had a big returns problem. We'd get things back, say the jogging store site. Okay, well, we did 25,000 jogging stores a year. Well, at a
Mm.
3% return rate, which is really low at the time because the returns weren't as easy as they are now and sort of the norm. But even at 3%, that's 750 strollers coming back a year, of which maybe a third could get put back on the shelf. So now we're sitting with 500 strollers. What do we do with them? Well, yeah, we could eBay them, we could Craigslist, we could have a warehouse sale, but that only goes so far. And so at the time, we created our own website, which was returnsforsale.com. And we put them up on there, and then they would drip in price until they sold. Okay, well, obviously that, as I said, that business closed, and then came the Shopify ecosystem, which is really like anybody can just, if you have no experience, can create a website. That's what's beautiful about Shopify. And that made the barrier entry much lower. But then, of course, the becoming unique and such was really hard to do, and everyone's doing it. So I found my niche and I just thought, well, what if I created what we had going for it as a Shopify app, as that app system ecosystem grew? And so I was holding on to that, and I have a couple of e-commerce websites that I still run, that really enjoy. But then this became a passion of, and also as a kind of an eco-conscious type of person, I felt like, well, this is something I can give back. And I wound up joining, actually was later in this career, I joined 1% for the Planet. So I wanted to make that eco part, but also just helping businesses. And that's part of my own DNA, is helping others. And so that's how it eventually evolved. And I've created this app, returnsforsale.com. And the beauty of it is completely unique. Nobody else is doing this. And the downfall is that it's completely unique and nobody knows it exists. And so hopefully with even this podcast, that other users will see what it's about.
What I like about it is that you went through the trenches of selling online for many, many years and really felt the pain with returns and how difficult it is to deal with them. And this is a service, as you said, that everyone needs to offer to their customers. And there is, just depending on the business, a very high number of returns. And I've been in a situation myself years ago that I did not know where to put the returns, because same lifestyle, being location independent, which I think a lot of our listeners is one of their driving forces why they're on Shopify, why they want to start an e-commerce business, is being location independent, having a business in the cloud, and now dealing with all these returns, which is a pain in the neck. Now, I think the solution that you came up is, and you said there is no one other there, is genius. I would have loved to have that years ago. I think it's absolutely genius. I had a look at it, and I strongly recommend our listeners, after the podcast, go and check it out yourself. It will make your life so much easier. Now, talk us through the different features. How does it work, and how does it help a merchant?
So, well, one thing that I was going for was we need to make it easy for customers or clients or Shopify users to post this. And I like to say, make it easier for the vendors and the customers have equal merit when I'm developing this app. And by that, I mean, have to think in the terms of make this easy for the vendors, the Shopify owners, and I need to make this real clear and easy and desirable for the end user, the customers. So there was two mindsets there. I read once that Jeff Bezos had an empty seat at his board table for the customer. Well, I always felt that Jeff Bezos should have had an empty seat for the third-party seller at the table. And I think he really missed out on that. I think those people have been pretty abused by the whole thing and the margins being taken and such. And even, by the way, their returns, because I also sell on Amazon, and Amazon sends returns and you get to choose, do they want to dispose it? You get it sent back, then you've got this open box return, and it's really abused on Amazon. But so along those lines, I was thinking of, so the process is, so I tie it in with Shopify. So when you go to my app, which was built in within Shopify, and we then choose from a drop-down menu of your products, it ties right into your products. They choose the product, and then you get to say, all right, how many do I have? You rate it, A, B, C, D, E, and then you describe it. You get to choose which images, and what we're essentially doing is creating a new page, which somebody could probably do they for sure could do it on their own. It would just take a whole lot more time and wouldn't have the sophistication that we have with this. But so we tie into that to their Shopify site. They choose their product. We take their product and we rate it, and we do a quantity. So we've rated A, B, C, D, or E. They get to describe it, And then they get to choose which images are going to come over to the new page, and then they get to add images. The idea being we put a little widget on their website that says, okay, normally this pair of shoes was $100, but now these shoes are $80, and you want to know exactly what's wrong with them. Maybe they were just worn once, the box is missing, and they got a little scuff on them, and they send them back. Now it's at $80, and you can opt to put it at $80, or you can have it drip at 1% a day, or whatever percent you want, even 0.1% a day until it actually sells. And so we're letting the market find the price, and we're making it very easy. And that little widget shows up on their website. It also, they click on that, it goes to a new page that we've created that has the right images of the old product, maybe in that particular color, and we have any damages so that they can see exactly what they're getting when they're buying a new product. You can also adjust, say, your return policy. Maybe you don't want to take returns on returns, so all sales are final. Or maybe a condition is allowed returns. We let you adjust that. And then also as a Shopify owner, you can appreciate once it sells, it wipes out from the back end. So you don't have to go and delete it. Actually, it archives for about 40 days. Well, the reason we did that is some customers have return software that are looking for the return. But so we archive it for 40 days and then it completely deletes. So we try to make it really clean on the back end. As a Shopify owner, I was able to take my knowledge from using Shopify since 2011 of all the things that they have to take into consideration, and then just being a shopper myself of, well, what do I have to take into consideration as a consumer? I want to know exactly what I'm getting if I'm buying returns. Some people won't buy returns. If you're buying a baby shower gift, you're not going to send a returned item. But if you're just looking for a discount, you don't care that it's got a few scuffs, I'm going to wear the shoes anyways, well, then many people will take that opportunity.
hmm I said, I think it's a genius solution. And as also, it shows already for me that there's a lot of thoughts in there. I like this drip process, and we can talk a little bit more about that because I think that's very, very unique. And specifically for people or for versions that really want to sell this over time but don't have time pressure on it. So you just leave it there, and then at some point the price will match. How did you come up with the idea, and how do you maintain this?
So, that's a good question. I don't remember how I actually came up with the idea, but it seemed like a great idea at the time. I mean, certainly eBay is, you can increase your bid. I just thought, well, this is like, where do we price this? What do we put it at? That pair of shoes we start at $90. It's only been used once. Maybe it just needs 5% off. And then it came to, well, why don't we let the market find the price? And of course, if you don't get a lot, if it's an obscure item, you don't get a lot of traffic on it, you probably won't want to let it just continually drip because it could. We actually have one where you could set it, or you can set these to whatever you want, but you could set a floor on it. So I want to stop my losses at 50% or whatever. But so yeah, so that was just it. Like, let the market find the price. But some people, they have massive traffic. They know it'll sell. Let's just put it at 10% off. Eventually they'll sell. And one thing that I made really cool that I came up with was, say you've got uh, 6 products that are used that you're selling of the same product, and you're letting it drip in price, and you're going to let that go down to maybe even down to 30% of its value. Well, the idea was, say you started at 90%, it drips down to 80, then it's at 70%. Somebody buys it, one of them, but there's still 5 left, and then it can go down to 60, 50, 40. Well, I just thought, well, then somebody's going to call and be like, well, wait a minute, now that price is at 50% off. I bought it at 30% off. So what we did is we made it, once it sells, it jumps back up to that original offering at, say, 10% off. And it was just one way, same thing, of just thinking in the mindset of a Shopify owner of how is this best going to work. So it's been really fun and successful. And I of course was thinking in my own realm, but I started to learn of some of my customers. An example being, I got real fortunate with I ran into a guy who has a Shopify store, owns a automotive store. And I said, what are you doing with your returns? He's like, oh man, Brad, it is a massive problem. We're sitting on half a warehouse of returns. People buy a muffler, they start it install it, they don't like the way it sounds, and they send it back. And now I can't sell it as new, and it's missing a few bolts. And I told him about my solution. He's like, we'll give it a try. This is like a $30 to $50 million company. And sure enough, they tried it and they loved it. And then I started to get some of their competitors calling, like, what is this thing on there? Your returns for sale? Like, what is this thing? And that was able to spread. But then there was things like, even I had a lot of success with a wig company. I never would have thought, but they said the same thing. They're drop shipping their wigs. They drop ship all their wigs, but they can't send the wigs back to the manufacturer, so they have to take them in-house. Not only that, people are buying 3, 4, 5 wigs at a time because they want to try them on. And so they would just take them in-house, they use our app, and it worked out great.
Awesome. I want to talk a little bit about the maintaining of in the warehouse, basically the day-to-day work to get the data into the system. How does that work?
Right, that's a really good question. And the success of the app has to do with the process. Sure, a mom and pop store, you get your Amazon returns, you put them in your office, you just list them right from there. It's real easy. But a warehouse, for example, that automotive company, well, they actually had a few different warehouses in different locations. And so we've made it so that, well, first off, you can choose the location of which warehouse you're choosing. And you can even choose, some companies have a different theme they're using for a returns page, because a lot of people will categorize these on their Shopify app or Shopify store so that it says, yes, it's on that page, that new product page, but it's also in a category of sale items or what have you. And so it is, to your point, of the process of setting it up. So generally, like in our warehouse, we would have products would come back, it gets inspected. Can it go back on the shelf? Yes, great. It's going to go back on the shelf. It goes in that pile for somebody to restore it, restock it. And so the next one is, all right, this one is damaged. And then somebody has to actually take some pictures of the damage and they have to assess it. And in a perfect world of what I've seen, some of these bigger Shopify Plus sites that use our site, what they do is they have a process in place where maybe it goes onto a spreadsheet of this, we got this return, it's in this condition, here's a couple pictures of it, and then marketing will repost it. It just sort of depends on the business you're in or how that communication happens. And then it goes into a pile, and we have the ability where you can also adjust the SKU. So it gets labeled with a SKU and it gets put in a bin so that they know where it is. And then when it's sold, they see that SKU that's sold. You can also rename it. You give it a new URL. So yeah, it is the success of the app comes down to how well that your process is, and it's different for every company.
hmm Now, I'm a marketing guy, and I like the approach that you can use this actually in plenty of ways that have come to my mind now in your marketing. You can bring back people who haven't bought in the first place. You can do some kind of gamification with that because of the drip process. So I think there is a lot of synergies in there to not get only rid of a problem of returns, but also use them to increase your revenue with more marketing on that side. Now, you gave a couple of examples on businesses. Is there any kind of specific niche or industry where you see that works the best?
There are certain industries where returns aren't necessarily working. Okay, sex toys. You can't return a sex toy. Clothing, generally clothing gets put back on the shelf. However, sometimes it smells like maybe smoke. Somebody wore a dress out to a cocktail party once and then returned it. There's so much return fraud. Even in our jogging store business, we weren't watching everyone, but sometimes a stroller would be sent down to a hotel in Orlando. They used it for Disney World and then they sent it back, and now it's got sippy cup stains. I mean, there's just return fraud all over the place. Yeah, so is there a particular industry? I mean, there's automotive, furniture's been successful. I had no idea, but air conditioning units. We have a company that sells those for windows that came back. Shoes is a real obvious one, and I've really made some customization on shoes so that because shoes, you have multiple variants, right? You're looking at a page, but you've got maybe 4 colors and 13 different sizes. And so the app can have many listed. Well, when you highlight size 6.5 in red of this shoe, it goes to the top of the widget. Electronics has been good. Sporting goods, one of the biggest lacrosse dealers in the country, uses our site. Pet sites is great because pets have hair on it and what have you. Even a game store out of the UK used to or has been using us. Sometimes they have like damaged corners or damaged things get dropped. Kitchen, we've got a knives company, as I said, wigs. There's not really, it's more of like a question of if you have open box returns that can't be sold as new, you're going to find use of our app. There's obvious ones where they don't resell returns, but other than that, it works. And I will say, just on your point last, one of my real sticklers was that it takes less than a minute to post. Once you have the photo of it and you know the description, that was a big thing. In our Shopify app, it ties into Shopify. In fact, something at some point we could talk about is I am going for this, what they now call built for Shopify, if you're familiar. And I think there's roughly 12,000 Shopify apps out there right now. It's just a growing system there, but I think there's maybe 700, roughly give or take, 700 built for Shopify apps. And I'm going for that. And part of it is it's really hard to get. Because Shopify is really stringent. Maybe it wasn't so much at the very beginning because they were starting the program, but now they make it where it has to look like it's integrated into Shopify, and it is integrated to Shopify, and it passes all these speed tests, and it's got to be there. And to this day, when we're filming this or recording this, I have not achieved it, but we've gone back maybe 4 or 5 times. We're getting really close, and it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time and investment. So it's really fun because I love improving, but that's part of what I'm trying to present is, hey, I want to be built for Shopify. You get this badge, and it means something.
And it makes perfect sense. I think your solution is so unique to the market that there's a good chance that you will get this back. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the onboarding process. How does that look like? How long does it take?
So once you load it in, nowadays with Shopify, they make it pretty easy. There's really not much to it. It's really just figuring out your process. We tie right away right into your whole Shopify system. I mean, my obsession is customer service. And so I try to reach out to everyone who joins and say, hey, I'm here to give you a demo call. I'm here to walk you through it. I give my actual cell phone number, my text, my WhatsApp, my email, and it goes right to me. It's what I love. Even when I had 85 employees, my favorite part about it was customer service and helping people out. So I continue on that. My obsession, it's one of my core values is my customer service obsession. So if there is ever any issues or questions or suggestions, I reach out. That said, so much of when people sign up for Shopify, the real person who's doing it's almost like a fake email or what have you. They don't all get my message. So I really don't do that often, but I love when people do take me up on it, and they should know that they can do that just listening here.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your pricing structure. How do you charge for the app?
So we do it as there's no chart. We don't do a monthly fee because I felt like I never liked those. If you're not using it, you're not paying. Right now, we take 5% of the sale on those sales and only those sales. And on Shopify, that comes out of your Shopify fees at the end. They take their percentage from me and what have you. But yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. And again, I think there's so much potential there to make additional revenue and save you a lot of headaches with dealing all of these. So it's definitely worth it. Before our coffee break comes to an end today, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
No, I just appreciate you having me. I really do. I'd like to get my weakness out there. My strength is building this great thing and my obsession to customer service and my innovation, and keep building on it. And I love that part. My weakest part is marketing. I haven't taken money home from this app. I've been at it for about 5 or 6 years, but it's so much fun, and I love building and making it better. It's to the benefit of everyone else. And but my marketing, I'm not doing a great job at it. At some point, I do need to switch my focus. Honestly, I'm not even on social media. It's just not my way of life. But yeah, the app is being used. I'm really proud to say we've sold, I don't know the exact number right offhand, but it's close to 4,000 returns that have gone through the app. So it's very exciting, and I feel really proud of what we built. So I think that those using it, if you have open box returns, it's a really great solution. So yeah, there's nothing else to add than that.
I think for our listeners, check it out. It's really a golden nugget. You will be happy to see that because everyone has to deal with returns, and it's so unique. It's definitely worth trying it out, and I think it will add to your business. Where can people go and find you?
So we are returnsforsale.com, or you can just search for in the Shopify store for open box returns. It's called Drip Returns for Sale.
Mm-hmm.
The drip is, of course, the dripping price in perpetuity.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes, then you're just one click away, and I hope a lot of people will reach out to you and check it out. Thanks so much for your time today.
All right. Thanks, Klaus, for having me.